welcome with repetitive music here. Hold on, let me just fix my screen. Thank you for coming and stopping by. I see we have quite a few people. Today we're talking to TILMANN MILDE, also known as, I believe, 51Daedelus from Unreal Lighting Academy. We will be covering a couple of breakdowns and a few things. But before we get that far, remember you can stop by lightingbot.com to watch written articles from lighting artists as well. So they are not actually video interviews, they are written articles. And just a reminder for everyone, do join our Discord to do some portfolio review, some community highlights, some Unreal tutorials, some Unity tutorials, or if you need some lighting mentorship. And make sure you like and subscribe our channel on YouTube, because there's quite a lot of content here for you to enjoy and learn. So with that marketing placement done, let's invite TILMANN into the interview as soon as possible. Hey man.
Hey, hello. How's it going?
It's going good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm sweet. I'm excited for this.
Do you hear any background noise? No? Nothing?
I just did some. Yeah. I think I heard a bunch of fans. They cheer us on for this thing tonight.
Yeah, it's all the famous UK brawlers. They're screaming and yelling. Hopefully they won't disturb too much. If they do, just let me know, and we'll just have to scream a bit louder than them, basically.
Exactly.
So, TILMANN, who are you?
So hi to everyone who's watching tonight. I'm TILMANN MILDE, senior lighting artist right now at Remedy Entertainment here in beautiful Finland. It's not too cold. It was a nice day today. I've been around a bit. I did one of those infamous schools to learn how to make video games. Started out with environment art, went into tech art and stuff, and then lighting at some point. I've worked on the infamously multiple times canceled Dead Island 2 back in Berlin. That was actually one of my first industry jobs, where I transitioned from environment art to the lighting craft. Then I left Jaeger in Berlin and joined DICE in Stockholm, and worked mostly on the Star Wars franchise, but a bit of Battlefield as well. A bit of traveling to the other EA studios, just preaching about Frostbite. And last year in September, I left and came to Remedy. So my big passion is just make shit as beautiful as I can, but while making the way to get there as easy as possible. And also just I'm really into workflows and things make the way smooth, make stuff reusable for the people that come after what you do. All right. I also do shader stuff, but some of that shit is just way over my head. So
would you say, do you consider yourself a lighting artist, technical lighting artist? What kind of subcategory are you?
Yeah, I would definitely say technical lighting artist. Because I'm never just doing lighting. I'm usually digging into many other things as well. On Star Wars, I've built water shaders and stuff like that. Just because,
Why not? So why not, right?
Exactly.
If you can do it, you should do it, basically. That's good. So just a reminder for everyone, if you have any questions, you can ask on LinkedIn and YouTube. It should pop up on the screen when I click it. If you happen to be watching on Twitter, which I know some of you are, you'll have to click the reply button, and I'll manually check on and off to make sure we can ask TILMANN the exciting questions that I know some of you want to ask. So TILMANN, let's first make sure that people understand your role as it is today. Someone who doesn't have any understanding of what we're talking about, who happens to tune in, what is exactly you do during your work currently?
So Right now my work is a little bit different from what I usually do, and that is because of the phase that like the project is in that I work on, which is right now like more of like a pre-production kind of thing. um Pre-production can be very stressful because like most of the questions are not answered yet. So it's less about executing something, it's more about figuring out how to execute on something. So it involves a lot of trial and error. It is usually one of the phases of the project where you mostly want to have senior people, because it can be quite like overwhelming for people that don't have as much experience yet, because if you don't, then you usually waste a lot of time on things that are like maybe not as important, or like figuring out things is very very important in this phase of the project, but you can also like go too deep and then it becomes like very inefficient instead of moving actually forward. So like pre-production is usually very bad for like junior people, because they feel kind of like useless, or they feel bad about their work because they don't get as much like, oh yeah, hey, you made this like part of the map and it looks like really great and stuff like that. It doesn't really happen. So yeah, it's a lot of like groundwork stuff, a lot of trying to find like when you have certain mechanics in game and you don't yet really know how they're supposed to like tie in with the actual lighting, and you just like need to like figure out a prototype for that, and it's like usually quite involving for many different crafts. So it's not like a very lighting isolated type of work. It involves a lot of people, because just like even a simple thing um, potentially can mean that there's like gameplay people involved, animation people involved. There's usually always VFX and audio people involved, because like even if you like just make a light flicker, right? Um, every lighting artist usually can make a light flicker, right? But like, how do you make it so the audio has the same support? That you hear like this electricity sound on your lamp. So like, who's first, right? It's kind of like a chicken and the egg situation. Do you make the flickering based on the sound or audio design, or the other way around? Or can you actually have a systemic approach where the audio gets like triggered by like a curve, and the curve also does the light? There's so many things that you can like potentially think about, and then it may involve some VFX as well. So yeah, right now it's a lot of those kind of things,
It's
and
neither.
less.
It's neither. You just say we can't do it. That's what you do. So we can't do flick. We can't do story. New idea. That's what you do.
Yeah, so
That's good.
yeah, I mean, like, I
Uh,
can't go into more specifics than that.
yeah, I figured that much. So you wanted to talk a little bit about holistic lighting, right?
Yes,
Should we get into it a little bit while we have a lot of people watching, and
absolutely.
kind of get down to the juicy part first, and then we can
Yes,
take breaks in between? Do you want me to add your screen to the stream?
we can start adding the screen, yeah. But
Okay.
first of all, I just want to say one thing. Like, I know that it probably sounds like very, very pretentious to call something like holistic lighting. Um, but like, what I've experienced in my career, not only as a lighting artist but as an artist in general, is that um, and it happens everywhere, like it happens like even on like art direction levels and things like that. People can be incredibly like focused on like details and things like that, and they can be very very pushy even with some of those things, like like really, it's like when it's like when Digital Foundry like analyzes a video game and they like go frame by frame to just find the artifact. And I'm kind of like, can we like look at the picture instead of like like digging into this tiny little pixel corner thing? And that's kind of like what I feel about when I say like holistic lighting, as well. What I like, I like to build things, worlds, lighting, mood that works in the grander scheme of things, which is like a complete view. Like, I want to treat the whole image as just that, but also an image is always something that happens inside a world, right? So I don't want to focus on this one particular thing. And it may sound a bit like crazy to say like, no, I want to instead focus on all the things, because obviously that you can't afford that either. But I think that that's exactly why having this holistic approach of trying to like grow something equally is so valuable. Because what I try to do when I like approach my lighting is I try to set up global things and think about small scale things in context to bigger things that can happen, and that will create something that at least in my experience feels more like whole. And it also makes it like sometimes easier to derive things from it when you put other things in there, and those other things, they can potentially be like characters and like whatnot, like. But like often it's it's tricky to just like drop a character somewhere and then like have like a setup that like already like works quite well. And actually, now I'm gonna start with something before I dig into this, which I have on my side screen here. Like sadly, I don't really have the Unreal file available, but like a while ago, I did like this quick relighting of this like cabin environment that a lot of people probably know. And it's just these two shots that I felt like comfortable with. But the thing is, like, I didn't design this shot. Like I didn't do anything to make this shot look good. But what I did was I built a believable scene. Like to me, this whole scene was basically I just wanted to test like skylighting only using the GPU light mask. I think that is actually not the Epic GPU light mask, but the one from the forums, the fan made one. And I just wanted to see, like, my initial drive was like, so how much can I get something in this scene that kind of looks like sexy and appealing, or like transfers some kind of emotion without like adding anything? Like I really just wanted the sky to do the whole work. And there's actually only one light in this whole scene that is not the sky, and that's this red light inside the stove thingy heater or whatever it is. But like there's no set lighting. There is no like I'm gonna highlight this thing and then like I'm gonna separate it from the background. So, and by holistic lighting I mean like build something that works as a scene, but then when you pick these spots, like this image you can see here or that image, it works. It still works as a whole. It still looks like pleasing. And the good thing is I didn't spend any extra time on that. So it is also quite efficient because I thought about it during the whole process of lighting that thing. I kept all these little parts in mind as well without giving them some like extra love. But it turns out it just ties together in the end. And that's pretty much what I learned during my times on this project here. Because like if you look at like what DICE does, there is no arguing that it's like spectacular quality, but there's also like a lot of like these maps. Like I mean, some of these maps, like they're huge. There's like no small stuff, and you have to be very efficient, and you have to think about constantly kind of like everything to achieve this like quality and look. And most importantly, a lot of the stuff that is used here is incredibly cheap, because like this shit needs to run 60 on console, right? So you it's that's not an easy thing to do. But it even more so like means that you have to work smart with the tools that you've been given instead of like trying to cloud chase fancy features. Like if you look, for example, at these like lights here on the tree with these like entrances, there's not a single light source there. um that's actually just like a baked emissive. And then there's even a specular reflection here. So how do we get specular reflection? Well, we had a technique on Battlefront where we basically extract the dominant light direction from the light map pixels, and we can then spawn virtual point lights that don't actually exist, and we can get specular from them, sort of, in a very simplified way. So we basically get specular here, even though there's not a point light placed here. And the great thing is, like, this shit just works. Like, there's no extra time needed. The only thing that I do is I set the emissive color and intensity on all of this correctly, but then it still like looks just really, really good. And that's a very low-hanging fruit to do. So yeah, I mean, like, working on these games has like taught me a lot about how to approach my stuff. And it's quite interesting because, like, you know, when looking at this private work here, for example, this whole thing is actually something that, like, it just happened. Like, I didn't set out to do this. And that is usually when I do my private work, it quite often comes down to that. Because when I do my professional work, I always have something that I set out to do. Because, you know, there's art direction involved. There may be an IP to work with, so you have clear, like, guidelines. You know, like, I mean, like, there was a lot of creative freedom doing Star Wars, but there's also like rules that are just Star Wars that you need to follow through, and you can't like do whatever you want. So
So what are the
usually when
rules
I
though? What kind of rules did you? Is it like shadow casting, or what's the typical rules?
well well there's, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, there's artistic rules and there's technical rules, right. So like one of the technical rules is we can't have more than 3 lights cast shadow at the same time. So that's like a technical rule, or I think it
Right.
was 4 lights. So that's one thing, right? Then there's another rule, which is like more or less like a global rule, but you can't have any point lights casting dynamic shadows ever, just like
Right.
ever. That's like a instant like death.
It's like illegal. It's like you
It's,
fired.
yes, it's, dude, like, yeah, it's like, you know, like, you're gonna end up in hell if you do that. Is no, like, I mean, because like point lights, I don't know how many people know that, but I'm just gonna say it. A point light shadow map is calculated by projecting on 6 faces of a cube. Because you can't really have like a round shadow, like when it like looks to the outsides to like get the frustrums and shit. So basically, 1 point light is as expensive as 6 spotlights casting shadows. And that's the reason why you don't do it, because you can have 6 spotlights instead. Also, like, engineers will usually like slap your
it's a
fingers.
good. Yeah, normally you're not allowed. I mean, if you can avoid if you can get away with point light, then someone hasn't been paying attention to what you've been
Yeah.
doing.
Hey, and to be fair, there are games doing that. But like, there's like, you know, the whole scenario of where that usually happens is engineered around the fact. So like in Resident Evil 6, there is this scene where, like, you know, one of the crazy ass family members, like, they go through the garden, and you're like, Ethan is like hiding somewhere and shit, and she has this like lantern, and inside the lantern is a point light, and it casts a full 360 shadow. But it is a very like orchestrated scene. You know, it's not something that you can just have in a 40 player multiplayer map or something. Like, you know, single player games can usually be a lot more forgiving with that. You have at least like twice the budget when it comes to rendering. So like, you know, you have like 30 milliseconds budget or something like that on Star Wars, where like
Right.
a total budget of like 14 milliseconds for the whole render a frame budget. And that's incredibly tight. And that's also why I think that, like, even using like Unreal, a lot of rendering techniques in Unreal are more on the expensive side. And they work really well for single player, but like for multiplayer you need to cut. And like if you watch like some of the tech talks from like Epic themselves, even they say, when they do like the Fortnite stuff, it's just like so much more heavily optimized than stock Unreal 4, because they also realize like they just don't get away with it. And it may work when someone has like a really beefy rig, but like on consoles you're just like fucked if you do that. I mean, you can like not afford 1/3 of the budget for your ambient occlusion. I mean, that's just going to be bad news. So
We have a question. Someone named Tom. He had
hey,
to
Tom.
write on this. He had to write on Discord because apparently YouTube chat only allows 200 characters, and he needed more characters to ask the question.
Okay.
So, a big fan of Tillmann's works. I have a question for him regarding how to tackle the first iteration of lighting in a level. Some people tend to go directly for the final looks, colors, and exposure, but it may cause some frictions with level designers and level artists who may prefer a neutral ambience while they're building the level. What is your preferred approach and why?
Yeah, fuck designers. No. No. So
No, you
look,
said it.
yeah, I did. I'm gonna get burned for that. No.
Yeah.
So the thing is this, like, I totally understand the designers. And it's always a struggle. It's always, it's like someone likes, like, eating his pasta al dente, and someone who likes it like really wobbly and shit. And like, you can't just agree because you have different opinions, right? And it's like an age old war, and I'm not sure if it's ever going to be resolved in a meaningful way. But let me say it like this. Personally, I try to nail my lighting down to something that is like 85 to 90% final as early as I can. The reason for that is, first of all, I'm a lazy guy, and I hate like reiterating. I hate that. What I really like is making something and then commit to it together with art direction and agree that this is what we actually want and that it looks good. Because usually, art directors, they're all the same. Like 3 months later, they're going to come back to you and they're like, can we maybe? And you're like, nope, nope. We agreed on this. We signed this off, and of course you should never be completely static, because you can always, like someone can have an idea and then it actually is better in the end. But
It's true.
generally speaking, it means it is very important to commit to something and then stick with it, and not like fall over just because there's a bit of wind, like stick to a decision that you made because you all agreed on that it was good. Also, even like if it matches all the direction and everything, so that's like great, right? So I try to do that, and hopefully I'm not interfering too much with the designers and other crafts, because ultimately saying they their shit needs to work when the product is finished as well. So why would they be against a more finalized lighting and stuff? Because that is what they will ultimately end up with anyways, right? So I like here at Remedy, I made like a lighting overall for like a gameplay test level or like whatever. And I just made it look like nice, like beautiful. It got some, like a bit of volumetric fog in there, like some nice sun and like some good looking shit. And they were all super happy. They were like, yeah, this is fucking great. And I'm like, cool. Like that, that's how it should be. But if worst comes to worst, what I've done in the past is you can always have, obviously it depends on the tech that you're using as well. You can always have a separate light scenario, like a separate setting that is like incredibly neutral, like just have like a gray color sky, like some mid gray or like something brighter, and just like have a sun and like whatever rocks their boat, and then when they do their testing they can just swap the setting if they don't want your stuff. But usually my experience was always that most people are happy the more finalized it is. There's only one big thing: designers hate dark corners. They like always do. So if your lighting is more realistic and they say like, yeah, but this is so dark, I can't see shit, and then you adjust the exposure and then they go out and then it needs to level out and they get blinded, then they got to give you even more shit. But then there's actually also like something that you just need to sync with art direction. We had a lot of like these troubles on Star Wars where the interior exterior transitions they could be quite drastic. And what we did was we basically just got the fact signed off by the art directors, because like they say like, okay, like this is how much we kind of like want this, and this is like too bad, or like this is too boring, and then they just had to like accept it as well. I mean, there's always some politics involved in that, but you can and should help them as much as you can. And if that just means making a gray sky and a bunch of like just sunlight and have it look flat, then that's totally acceptable. But it should never mean that you can't do your actual work and have to delay it because of that.
I think at the same time, I agree that I think it's a good idea to have the colors and whatever you're choosing, because you do want to see it with the materials, and avoid
Yeah.
color mixing and kind of predict anything, because you can't assume that a level artist and level designer have the same understanding as you. So you want to make sure you cover that. At least in my experience, I like to cover the color mixing, and maybe and chase the art director and say, dude, we can't have this color, because if we want to have this smooth and this color on the light, and if you have green color on the walls, you're going to end up with this color or something else, right? Or purple if you mix the colors,
Yeah, and that actually brings me to a very important point as well. White box.
He says, thanks, I have the same approach, but it comes with a lot of fighting, as I always say.
Oh yeah, it does.
Afraid
It
of
always
dark.
does. But you should never be afraid to fight the good fight, because that's how good things happen. Because
Put on your gloves.
people do this, and in the end, you come out like stronger and better than before. But what I just wanted to quickly say, like white box. So what I usually do is like if there's like a white box level and it actually is literally like white box, like white or gray materials, I don't spend any meaningful time on lighting that shit. What I always say is when anyone wants me to do lighting, I want colored white boxes. I want basically white boxes that have diffuse colors, just like solid colors, that will represent the material color that the asset in the end will have. Because if I don't have that, I get such an incredibly like disconnected or wrong lighting from what is actually going to happen in the final scene, that all my time spending on doing cool things with the scene is almost like 80 to 90% going to be useless. And that is something that I'm a strong fighter for now these days. That's also something that I learned at DICE. Like, make your fucking white boxes have some colors that are the asset that is going to be in the end. It doesn't have to be like exactly that sampled like value, but if it's going to be a brown desk, make it a brown desk. If it's going to be a red carpet, make it a red carpet. Because for us lighters, this makes our work so much easier, and we will have so much less throwaway work.
I agree. I totally agree. Get them to do the base value color as soon as possible, or at least have it part of the pipeline, that it's going to be a stage in the pipeline to do that. I totally agree with that. Do you want to go through the breakdown of your scene?
Yeah.
While we have time.
Yeah. Exactly. So,
or I'm more than happy to do more than 1 hour if you want to. That's not a problem.
Oh, I don't mind, man. Like I'm.
In that case, take your time.
It's like when I was still doing the lighting academy, I was like, not more than 45 minutes, and then it's like fucking 2 hours. That just always happens.
So we'll just go with the flow then. So Thomas Didier says, agreed about that. I made a set of materials with the Macbeth colors designed for block maps. Very handy for my level design artist. And we have another question directly on YouTube.
Hey, from my man Wissam. Nice.
huge fan of your lighting scenes. By diffuse colors, so brown wall, brown color for it. Does that also mean trying to have the base roughness?
It can. It doesn't have to. it can sometimes be quite neat, especially when it has like floor materials and stuff like that, to have like a decent roughness value that gives you at least like some sort of contact reflections and stuff. It can be quite confusing on walls sometimes. I would say it really depends on the context. I don't have any preference or rule here. And since we're not like fully like ray tracing everything, the actual like roughness doesn't impact the lighting too much. It would in a proper path tracer though, because like reflection and bounce lighting are physically kind of very similar things. So there is definitely some changes when you have a very glossy surface versus a very rough one, but like not the way we work. So I think it just comes down to taste here.
And Saurabh, one of the active contributors at Lighting Board, have you ever had to follow an art direction that go against lighting fundamentals, and how did you deal with it?
That's a fantastic question. Fuck. Well, yes and no. Yeah, sometimes they, let me give you a good example. Do I have it? So see, I'm so lazy. I don't even make my own screenshots. Let's see here. Well, just a second. Here. So this thing, right? This map, it has this like yellow sky. I'm not gonna say any mean things about it. So yellow sky, yellow like sulfur rocks like everywhere, right? So what happens here is the same thing that happens on Mars. Like if you look at a picture from Mars, right? It looks incredibly fucking boring. And the reason for that is because there is actually no like color contrast on Mars. Everything is like a red filter, right? So the sky is red, like the sand is brown or like whatever. And that means that like all the indirect lighting and even some degree the sun lighting, everything is just going to be red, right? So that is the physically plausible way to do it, right? So in this scenario here in Kessel, it would mean that all the indirect lighting and everything should be like yellow brown. And I did that initially, like just because that's just what happens when you put in a yellow sky. You get like yellow sky lighting, right? And it looked so bad. It looked really, really bad. And it looked bad in the same way that pictures of Mars look like bad or uninteresting, because it's not something that the human eye is used to see. So the interesting thing now that happened, and it didn't come from my art director, it just came from me, and I was then sort of like educating my art director on this. It's like, I believe, the human brain, it has certain ways of working. And for the human brain, it looks very unnatural to have all these shadows be like brown and yellow, because you don't see things like that in your life. So even though that sky is yellow brown, what I did, I actually offset the actual skylight color to be like slightly bluish. And that is why all these pipes and everything and the shadows feel more natural. Like you can't really see that they're blue, but they actually are. And that tricks the brain into seeing and believing something that can actually not be. And thus it feels more realistic to your brain. So we're just like fooling it that way. There may actually be some like, yeah, here's like some more. Wait. Yeah, here, like these shadows, like they didn't look like this with the original sky. They like, you can even see like there's a subtle hint maybe of green in there. And and that is something where like you just go against the rules to cheat the brain. The brain is a very funny little thing, and it can be fucked with quite a bit in good ways and in negative ways. But like ultimately, I also feel like that is actually something that, you know, like it makes you a greater artist when you know how to cheat the brain and when you know how to like break the rules, or if you like you know also have decent reasons for breaking the rules. Because yeah, this could have looked a lot worse if we wouldn't have broken the rules of actual physical behavior. Yeah.
So how would you say someone can learn when to break the rules and how to break the rules? What skill set or what do the person need to do to even be able to think like this and implement something like this?
So yeah, only the hard way, man. Experience. I don't think you can learn this. I never did. I You know, it's quite interesting. The way I learned how to do lighting is kind of like how like the old masters learned in a certain way. You know, like I don't consume media about that. Like I don't read books about lighting theory or stuff like that. And I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying that's never what I did or what what rocks my boat. So I completely learn by learning from other people that I work with and being inspired by the way they do things, and then I'm a very observative person. Like I just look at shit and think about it, and then I make my thoughts, and based on my thoughts I try things, and then I see that they work, and then I think about them a bit more, and then I think about like how the brain works, and then I just connect the dots, and then suddenly this shit just makes sense. So it's like, it's I'm very organic in that way. And it's yes, yeah, no, absolutely, I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. Because again, like this is really just like how perception works, right? I had a very good thing like when I was teaching in Stockholm, right? Like a girl, she was like doing this underwater scene that she was building, and it just looked wrong, right? And I was like, why do you think it looks wrong? I was asking the whole classroom, right? And no one had an answer. So then I opened up an image from like a real physical camera looking at something underwater. And there were like man-made materials involved as well, so not just like some coral stuff and so on. And I said, like, if you look at this picture, there is something happening here that just doesn't happen when you're above the water. It's not what happens when light travels through air. It's something that happens when light travels through water. So can anyone point the finger on it? And no one could. And in the end, I obviously released them, and I said, like, there's no reflections. Like if you put a glossy piece of metal underwater at a certain depth, there is no more like reflection. Everything just looks dull. Everything has like this weird roughness value underwater, basically. And like once I told them, they were like, wash, I can never unsee this again. And like to me, one of the most important things is like teach people how to see. And that is also what I say, that every lighting artist out there, or like someone who wants to become a lighting artist, teach yourselves how to see, observe things, try to understand why they look the way they do, and then you'll be able to break the rules based on what you've learned about the world. That's kind of like a very weird way of putting it, but that's just how I see it.
I do agree on that we focus a lot on technical things, which is obviously important, but that technical skill, according to my experience, because I'm not very technical, can only get you so far unless you actually know what you're seeing in real life and how to fix things. And often you don't have always the top-notch technology. I mean, I've worked on a lot of projects where I use Ogre Engine, for example, and you have just very limited tools, or you might have other tools that's not Unreal Engine or Frostbite or whatever. And then you might, and every engine is different, so you might not have all these tools you're used to. So how do you solve it? And a lot of it comes, in my experience, down to, can you see the difference, and how do you fix it using your artistic approach, and how light actually works compared to just sliders and numbers. But that's my take. That's how I improve as a lighting artist, and that's how I work anyway.
I think you're absolutely right with that, because like I had a, before I did all the like lighting stuff and so on, I studied graphic design, and I had the guy that owned the company and I was like learning from him and shit. And he was a bit like extreme sometimes in the way he phrased things, but he said, like, you can learn any technical skill in this world, but you can't learn taste. Like, that just develops. Like, if you have a good taste or a bad taste, is based on your experiences, on you connecting the dots and these kind of things, and you can't learn it. It's something, it develops based on what you do in your life. And of course you kind of learn it because of you experiencing things, and you experience that something is better than something else, right? So you learn from that, but it's not like an active learning, it's a passive learning. It's not like, I'm going to sit down now and I learn taste. It's like, no, it's not possible. But you can sit down and learn about how spherical harmonics work. So like it's different kind of things.
I mean, for me, I'm doing painting. I just picked up painting a month ago to develop my taste, because I did photography a little bit, and I think photography is useful for sure. But I think for me, I understand painting and drawing more. It helps me understand light and color and style a bit more than photography does. But that's just for me. So I think every person should be open to explore different mediums, different way of art that speaks to them, and that help them develop their skills. Because a lot of people will tell you on this stream, I ask people, and I will ask you now as well, what are the top 3-5 things you think a lighting artist should learn or develop outside of the engine to improve as a lighting artist?
Well, the absolute number one skill is learning how to see. That's the most important skill. If you can't see, you can't do, and if you can't do, then it's nothing gonna happen.
So let's explore that though as a key thing then. So you have to see something, but how do you know what you're seeing is correct? I mean, it's how do you know
it's not necessarily about what is correct or what is not. It's about noticing.
Like when soft shadow becomes soft shadow and hard, is that like details?
For example, yeah, because like every human being has a different perception of color. So it's not about seeing how red is. That's like irrelevant. It's about noticing things. Like, for example, it has a lot to do like with being aware of your surroundings, but it also has a lot to do with self-reflection. It's a complementary skill. It's not like, seeing is not just seeing. It like comes from many different things that you need to become good at. So like, for example, self-reflection, right? Like when I have a student and I look at their work, and like, let's say their work is not good. And I ask them, what do you see in your own work that could potentially not be a target, or where do you feel you missed the mark and you could develop? Everyone fucking sucks at that, because once you are proud of finishing something, you lose the ability to see the flaws within it. And it's one of the most crucial skills to be self-reflective and analytical enough to see your own mistakes in the things that you are proud of, because it's okay to be proud of it. It's absolutely fantastic to be proud of it, but you should never ever let that cloud your view and your judgment on your own work. And that is, for example, what I see with a lot of artists is like, good artists. However, I would say at the same time they're also bad artists. And the reason for that is because they are not aware of their own quality, and that is why their own quality goes like this all the time. So they sometimes release a work that is absolutely fantastic, and the next day they release a work that is incredibly mediocre. And that shows you that they have no ability of actually judging their own work, because they always think this is good enough to show it to someone when it actually isn't. And that is something that I've realized a lot in this industry happening, where, and the problem is also the internet, because like then you have all these followers, and like everybody's like, hey, this is so fucking good, like you made this really beautiful thing, but it does not look good. And then these people like become even
That
more
is
like
very true.
they become even more like, oh, I got 200 likes, so it must be fantastic. And I look at it, and I'm sorry if I'm being mean now, but I'm like, this looks like shit, and why does no one say it looks bad? And that is because most people that look at it are even worse in judging this than we ourselves are. And that is why you need to learn to see. You need to, like when you're when I worked on Star Wars, I need to constantly deliver quality at the same level, right? I can't just deliver one thing that is good and one thing that's kind of like, no. I'm like it's like when you go to a concert from your favorite band and the concert sucks, and you're like, what the fuck? Like 2 weeks ago they played over there and it was fantastic. So they are professionals, right? So you expect them to always perform at the peak level and give you a memorable experience. And I think that with our job, it's the same. We need to be so good that we can constantly output the same level of quality without anyone telling us what is good and bad. We need our own skills need to be good enough to be able to judge that. And I think this is like one of the most important skills to have, because it applies not only on your own work, but it applies on, everything. Like the example that I gave before with the underwater scene, it's the same type of seeing, because you start analyzing what is happening and then you figure something out. And this can be something bad in your own work, or it can be the lack of reflection on a piece of metal underwater.
So you want to do something fun? Obviously that is fun for you, but probably not fun for me, depending on what you say. You want to go to my art station and critique one of my pieces or some of them?
Well, we can do that.
And because I don't think other people would be comfortable being critiqued, but I don't really care.
Okay, so which one do you want? Do you have a preference?
Just pick the one you like, and pick the one you like the least, I guess. My best piece and my worst piece.
Okay, so first of all, I think the most important part is like the thumbnails. They're super important, because they are like very small and they catch the eye, they catch your view. So you want to have something that is like really, really interesting. And I think this is probably the most boring thumbnail out of all of them.
Well, she's alone, so it makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's maybe.
She's bored.
I actually kind of think I like this one. I think I've also seen it before, but I just love these vacuums. So 10 points for choosing the correct vacuum.
Thank you. It's okay. You can be honest.
Dude. Like,
this is being recorded. I'll take notes. I don't need.
We'll have it notes for the generations after us. No, I'm thinking. I'm thinking. I need to first of all, I need to just let it soak in a little bit. So technically speaking, I think this looks pretty good. Like there's nothing really wrong with it from a execution point of view. My biggest negative point, if you can say that, would be that I feel that the shots feel random.
Right.
Like, just, the camera shots feel like random, and I fucking hate these baked shadows, man. But let's just let's not go into these tech details.
We might have to
It's
later.
it's really, it's like, the shots don't say anything. That's my only like nitpicky thing that I would say to this.
So on those shots, what I wanted to focus on was the wanted posters most of the time. That someone's being wanted. That's not actually part of the
It
something
actually
I
doesn't
added.
come across at all, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. But at least there was an intention behind it.
That's good. No, that's actually great. No, it's good that you have an intention, because a lot of people don't, and you can see it. Like, I always see that in my student work. When they don't really know what to do with the camera, you always see it.
But that's the point, right? It's that's the point, is also to get that feedback. Dude, is that something you
Yeah.
notice? 'Cause it is one of the brightest spots as well in the images. So does it work? Doesn't work? But yeah, move on. You can go through all of them. I'm more than happy to hear your point of view. Because you said we could do more than an hour, so we have time to make more content for people.
I mean, honestly, I really do like this one. I think, because isn't that the asset is from
Decogen, I think, the subway
exactly.
one.
But you did like your decal pass and all that, right?
Yeah, I did to change everything more or less.
Yeah, I really like that. So yeah, I think I gave you some little bit of the feedback on your YouTube video, but this one is really interesting. This is actually perfect, because that's exactly what I meant when I said like working with Star Wars. Because you have like I did stock heli-based lighting on the initial release of Battlefront 2, and we the movie was there, right? So I actually had shot by shot reference on how this has to look. And that's the great thing here as well. You basically have a shot by shot reference, but like already scrolling like this, you can see that there is a bunch of values that just don't like match up the same way.
Now that you scroll, I can see the top light in the middle is not the same either.
Yeah, so this is exactly. So there's a bit more like actually, like, you have more external bloom.
Yeah.
Dude, no judging that, man. Like, seriously, this is like really being just a very detail focused. Like, you have more external bloom here, and here it's more internal bloom. So it doesn't bloom as much outside of the actual shape, but it just like glows these things out here, and that is actually purely because of the exposure and not because of bloom, where it like
and
uses
how
these
would how would you do that technically speaking, though?
Well, reduce the bloom setting, but then make the emissive brighter.
Right.
And
maybe I'll do that if I still have the
then
scene.
there is one of the biggest differences that I can just see is the colors of the walls are
and the shadows, right?
Yeah, like your the shadows are,
because I think we talked about it a little
actually.
bit. It was a bit more. I think you said it was a bit more. I don't think I fixed them. Or maybe I did fix it, but you said it should be more brownish or darker or contrasty or something. And mine were a bit. They had a different bounce light to it, I think.
Yeah. So just here you can see that like the door colors and the wall colors, like your colors are more desaturated basically. And it can be multiple reasons, right? It can be that it's your diffuse color. It could also be that because of the grading here. I think that this grading is like, this whole movie has an incredibly strong teal orange grade. So like the thing is, I actually think that these seats are gray.
They
I don't
are
think
a
that.
different color.
Yeah, they are actually gray, but they end up green because of the grading. Same as with her skin. I mean, like, she looks almost like a fucking mango.
Yeah.
And
I think you're
it's
right.
like,
I think I found the original footage unedited after I did this, and
Oh,
I was like, I should have found it first and then fixed the materials. But
yeah.
I think you're right.
And one tip that I can give new people when you try to like get colors from like these movie references, it is really, 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 really hard to do. And like 80% of the time you're wrong, like me too. But what you can try doing is you can find things of reference, and then you can like extrapolate from that. So how do we find out how the colors are potentially being altered here? I can show you here. You can see here the reflection on the metal pipe, right? And it looks teal, but you know that this metal pipe is gray. So you know that there is this color shift happening. And here we don't have any of that. So here we know that all the colors are here manual colors that are not coming from the grade. And here all these color shifts are actually coming from the grade. So that way you can reverse engineer the image. And that is again this thing what I mean when I say learn how to see, learn how to compare. Because if you have something that you definitely know is gray in real life, but it looks green in the movie, then you know why it does look green.
So when I
And
when I do these things, I understand it's graded, but I will also light it with the color, so I don't have to grade as much later. So I will pick
mm,
the color. So that's a kind of different way of working. Maybe it's not the best way, but that's kind of I try and guess the color, and then I'm putting that on the light, so I don't have to stress afterwards.
mm. Actually, it really depends. That is also something that I learned on Star Wars. So in the whole Starkiller base, which is like super blue from the inside, all the whole set was completely 100% neutral, and it's all graded, and that's the reason why the lasers are rather purple in the movie. But then in the new Star Destroyers that they had in the latest movie, where you have um, the um, the new like Star Destroyer thingies. Let me quickly try to find something, because that's actually interesting, because like when I worked at Dice, we get the set photos, so I do know how things look like and how they built them. And what I found out, and they did not do that on the Force Awakens, but they did it on the other ones. Um, and they actually started using a mixed approach of having colored lighting versus grading. So this one here. So this is what I did. So like this is this frostbite here, and so basically these lights here, they are all like these up here, they are like white, but here the ring lights and the bottom lights, they're all blue, and they're actually blue in the set. So you could like in the set photos you could see this one corridor just like going into like from one room, and the whole room was like neutral, and then they could apply the grading to it. But that one corridor where they needed that extra moody stormtrooper shot, which is literally this corridor, it just was so fucking blue because of the old like the actual light sources being blue. So they mix that up as well, so they don't use only like one way of doing it, and I think that's actually quite interesting. If you look at like the Nicholas Winding Refn movies like Neon Demon and that kind of stuff, like I mean that's full on colored lights, right? Because you can't really get that look by just like, I mean, what do? Do you grade the left side of the picture to be like pink and the right side you make it blue? So no, like I think both are fine and both are valid, but I think depending on what you want to emulate or recreate, you need to choose the approach that was chosen for the source material, because otherwise you will not hit the source material. And that is why I learned this for Star Wars, because I needed to make like this needed to look exactly like the movie. So I had to apply logic to it that follows what they did for the movie, otherwise it would have looked wrong.
Cool.
I love this guy back there. Oh, that's fantastic.
I just wanted to do some Mac and stuff. Really, it was just
Yeah,
just
yeah,
fun.
no. I mean, I think this works really well. Like, absolutely does. I mean, one thing that I like find interesting now with this, um, like, I would assume that this drone has a light, which is the light that does like this. But since it doesn't, and it also gets hit here by this light, I'm like, where's this light coming from? So that's the only question that I see now, and there is no logical connection for this, so it feels a bit random. It could have been connected with like not having this light here, but actually having an additional floodlight from the drone doing the actual highlighting. So looking at it like this, I think it feels a bit disconnected, having the light hit like this. It's this, it has this like character of like the cinematic rim light that you never really know where it comes from, but it's just always there to separate the character from the background. I'm just personally not a huge fan of that. So what I would have done probably is I would have brightened the sky and made this light feel like it actually comes from the skylight, or give that guy a light, a flashlight. Those were probably one of the two things that I would have tried doing. So to have this like a more blue color, less intense, and then like brighten this sky here so you get the feeling that it actually is the skylight flooding the scene. Potentially. But yeah, I do like robots too. This is just very clean. But that's like, yeah, it's the Ubisoft engine. Is that done? Is it like that's not Snowdrop, right? It's like one of the other engines.
I used the oldest one, Annabelle.
Yeah. I mean, can't really do much. I think like artistically speaking, this is totally fine, but you can just see the old tech. But that's obviously not something that you can really improve. So now look at the lonely girl. What's this stuff here? This noise stuff.
I think it's just a little bit purposely made it a bit, noisy.
It looks like a
Cinematic.
post-process material or something, like clamping some values.
Yeah, basically.
Huh. Interesting. Honestly, here is like a similar thing. She just looks like fakelit. She doesn't look like she's part of the environment. This looks more natural, because you
Believe
can see you
that's
get like the front light and like these colors, they match the background and everything. But like she has like a lot of blue light hitting her that is not hitting the chairs. But I
I
mean,
think there's another version at the bottom, I think, as well, all the way at the bottom. I think there's another.
yeah. See, this is, dude, like light rigs is so fucking hard to do, because you kind of like want to light the character properly in context to the environment, and you want to also make the character stick out, but you also don't want it to, did you watch the Horizon Forbidden West trailer?
With all the rim light and stuff.
It's so awful, right? I mean, I have a good friend working there as a lighting artist, and I wrote him instantly. I was like, bro, and it was like, whoa. I do environment lighting, not character lighting. No, but I was just like, I felt bad because I was like, why? It's like a flashlight is pointed at her all times, even when she stands in the shadow. And
Yeah.
to me, to my brain, it actually looks bad. It looks really bad. Like artistically speaking, not technologically speaking, of course, but artistically speaking, it just looks. Yeah, this I like it a lot more.
Yeah, the bottom one is the one I like. The top one is what the
Good.
community.
Okay.
That's why I couldn't
Oh,
remove it, because
yeah.
this was the bottom one is my intention, but a lot of
Yeah.
people like the top one. But this is what I prefer. This worked very well for me.
Well,
The reason people didn't like it, I think, is because I like to crank the highlights on the wall, so it's kind of is a white
okay.
tripping a bit, and I kind of liked it, but people were like, "That's not realistic," and I was like, "Well, I kind of like it."
It is actually very realistic to have white clip. That usually what happens in the camera as well. But yeah, man, I agree with you. Like this is vastly superior, I think, to the let's call it community version.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges when I was doing this piece, I wanted to figure out what do people like, and what I liked was not the same as what the people liked, and I
Yeah.
had to. So it's good to get your viewpoint as well, because a lot of the challenges, at least in the beginning, I think, and a lot of people I think that I talk to and also mentor, is they get confused by the amount of feedback just people give, and different people with different skill give. So I trust more myself now. That's why I keep a lot of the
Mm.
pieces at the end as well, than I used to before.
So this one is incredibly interesting, I think. Um, so this one, I would say, like this is a 90 in terms of like matching the reference. Um, this like wetness and stuff, it's really really hard to do. But I think like in the central part of the face, it works really well. Um, I'm not sure if this is the dual lobe skin shader, so that definitely is something when if you don't have that, these things are very hard to do. My sorry, my biggest, if you can call it, complaint is here on the side and here on the chin. It looks more like a Fresnel effect. It's kind of too soft somehow, and here it still has more like breakup from like the pores or something. So it kind of like you did it really really well, and that's why I say it's a 90. But like the last missing thing is that here it kind of like on the sides it looks a bit too flat, and that is why it looks a bit more like a Fresnel shader. um, Honestly, I cannot tell you how to fix this. I would actually also just fool around until it works. Like I don't have like a secret sauce for this. So, you know, this is really really well done.
We were talking about
Um
laziness. This is one thing that I'm lazy with. Is like, okay, this is I don't know how to do the last part. It's okay. It's good
yeah.
enough. It shows enough skills. I'll just call it a day. But that's like
Yeah.
materials and stuff and editing. Then you're
Yeah.
getting a bit complicated for me to kind of go into that kind of material that comes with this character. I had to edit a lot just to get the front working, and it was a pain in
Mm.
the ass, man.
Yeah,
That's
I
where
can.
tech artists probably do a much better job.
This is quite nice. There's a lot of fake lighting going on as well. I just see that. I'm
Are you
sorry.
kidding me? It's all fake.
It's like, but you know, this is the interesting thing. So like, sorry for because like what I wanted to talk about with the whole swimming pool thing, right? Like, um,
This was actually one of my first pieces. It says 1 year ago. That's because I have been
uh,
editing in DaVinci to kind of get two versions, but it's actually
mm,
4 or 5 years old, and it's definitely all fake lighting. I think this has like
yeah.
this literally has like 40 lights or something crazy to get
Oh
the
wow.
birds highlight, the tree. I was really going all
Yeah,
in
yeah.
with the amount
Well,
of
it
lights.
it looks like a, you know, you can see it. It has this like flavor of like this dreamy stylized painting.
Yeah.
Um, no, so what I wanted to get at is like, so
Painting was
like,
the reference, though. There was a painter I was referencing when I was doing that as well.
nice. So a few years ago, I was in Stockholm in the Fjäril's huset, which is the butterfly house. And it's kind of like a, you know, like a indoor tropical garden with like butterflies flying around, right? And initially, I took my camera to take pictures of fucking butterflies. But the lighting in that place is some of the best lighting I've ever seen.
So
And
you
then
you
I
didn't pay
just,
attention to the butterflies. You paid attention to the
dude,
lighting.
like, no, I
basically.
was just like taking pictures of people, because like, you know, the way that the place was built and how light was flooding the place, it just made everything look good. And I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, this is like phenomenal. So like, you know, I'm like, you know, like, there is no light staging here, but this is like a fucking perfect shot. You know, you have it all. You have like some rim light to make the character read. You have a clearly separated backlight, sort of separating from the background. There's reflections in the eyes. The skin is readable. The colors are warm. You know, there's like, you know, it's just like this warm light, and now it's like soft, and everything just kind of works. Then they had these like, you know, aquarium things here, and you know, this is like a perfect movie shot. Like everything just works, and there's no like, you know, light source from behind that was placed there for artistic reasons. Like this just is like the natural scenario of how this place looked like. And you know, like you get all these like strong emotional shots in there that work really, really, really well. And like what I like to do is like, these things, they only happen because in real life light sources have not infinite radius, but they have way bigger radiuses than we usually do it in games, because in games we kind of like make the radius smaller for performance reasons, so we like artificially cut them off. And the thing is, that way we also get rid of all the specula, and that is what we need to emulate when we actually build a scene digitally. And that is why we have fake character lighting. So one of the biggest things that I actually wanted to do with this scene, while I was just figuring out like a GPU light mask, I then was like, hey, I want to just drop Mike in there, because like I needed a really, really high quality human asset, you know, someone that has the proper skin spec and all that kind of shit. And first I actually just started with this stuff here, where I just like put like an orange light somewhere, and I thought like, hey, this is a cool color contrast and stuff. And then I started, yeah, putting Mike in there, and every shot of Mike is custom lit. So if I would remove the lights, it would look like shit. However, it always feels like he's perfectly part of the scene that he stands in. It never really feels like he is like out of place. And that was kind of like quite a challenge to do. I mean, like I have the scene here. So like, first of all, it runs really badly because I don't use DLSS here, and I only have like a 2070 RTX card. So I'm using ray trace shadows and reflections, and that shit is just really expensive. Also, I think this is one of my best cameras, because like it actually, whoa, it's actually inside the wall here.
Before
So,
you go into the scene,
yeah.
just a quick hello to Desulas and Androx and Thomas for joining us a bit late. You have a question that you mentioned earlier. What do you think about the lighting on characters in Horizon, that you messaged the guy and said something?
Oh, well,
Is it
you
too
know,
much? Is it is overall?
oh,
Is that
it's
good?
absolutely too much. You know, like the thing is this, like right now, I actually think they just did it for the trailer, and I hope they don't ship it. That I mean, like I'm really hoping that. But you know, the thing is, like, as I want to illustrate with this scene here, I don't have anything against fake lighting, because fake lighting is necessary because we don't have full-on ray tracing for everything yet. Because if we have full-on ray tracing, we can get shots like this, because that's real life without staging. So what I'm trying to say is, you can shoot a movie that looks like this without any fake lights. So if we have the same technique in terms of tracing rays across the screen. We can have stuff that looks this good without having movie lights. However, then you can do movie lights if you want to, right? Um,
So
to emphasize things, and I think that's what they were initially thinking with Horizon. But the more they just went there, they started pushing more and pushing more, and eventually it became something incredibly stylized. Personally, I don't think it looks pleasing, but that it's not my art direction.
So, just a quick question then. According to ray tracing, what do you think would happen to lighting artists if ray tracing did most of the work to replicate something like your photos? What do you think the skill set would be then if the technology was doing most of the heavy lifting?
I think people are always so afraid of these kind of things. Honestly, I don't fucking care. I think ray tracing is the best thing that has happened to us ever. It's like a friend reached out to me when the Unreal 5 early access became available. He's like, "Hey, now that there's like Lumen, are you afraid you won't be needed anymore?" I'm like, "Dude, like I've been in the industry for like over 10 years. This is the day I've been waiting for, man. Like, finally I can just crank out my creative work. Finally I can like get the things without so much hassle. To me, all of this is barrier removal. It
So,
has it ha-
would you say what you told earlier is now more important? The skills to see, the skills to be creative, the skills to build a mood is even
yeah,
more important now. Would you agree?
absolutely, absolutely. Because it's easier to execute now, but that doesn't mean that it's easier to know how it's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
So that doesn't really change. And I think with this more power, it actually, I've actually seen a lot of shit coming from like Unreal 5 Lumen stuff where people are like, "Oh, look at this. I made this using Lumen, real time GI way." And I look at it and I was like, dude, but like it looks bad. And even though there is a technological base for executing some things easier, it doesn't mean that you automatically can do something that looks good. Those are two completely different things. And to me, having all this technology is just like enabling, it's just fantastic. It's like before I needed to go through a lot of hoops to hide low res shadow maps or too harsh shadows on a character's face. Now I have ray traced shadows, so I don't have that issue anymore, right? So there's this far away light source and it doesn't reflect on the character's eyes. So I need to put the fake light there that aims only at the eyes without trying to affect the face. I don't have to do that anymore because that emissive surface back there now gets picked up by the ray tracing. So it is unbelievably enabling and unblocking me in my creative process. It's a huge boon, and especially since it's so much more interactive and faster when you don't have like a slow machine like I do, or like, well, not a super fast RTX card. It's very, very good to work with.
So Andrew says he asked other people about Horizon, the latest trailer and everything, and normal people, I'm saying normal people who are not in the game industry they like it a lot. Do you think there is a reason that people who are just consumers like it versus people who are professional might be more critical to it?
Oh, absolutely. Marvel movies are at fault. No, like with a bit of more seriousness.
Too late.
Yeah. No, I think there has been a change in cinematic perception over the years, which has been like pioneered by popcorn cinema. And like if you look at Dune, for example, the new Dune movie, for everyone, I'm not going to talk about spoiler material here, so don't worry if you haven't seen the movie. But if you look at the movie, that movie visually is like the shit that I'm talking about here. Like the movie is really like the things we can see here, where like this character has like a pleasing shot where, you know, this just feels like the light coming from, because he's cool, and him from below, and he fades into darkness on the left. And I think, like, God, it's just so weird having all these floating dudes around here. And you know, like a very, very similar shot is actually like sheesh, too many shots.
My skin is so weird today. All the lighting I'm doing on my side on the camera looks terrible. It's something weird going on with my face or something. It's like all the colors that look terrible. I'm trying to match the color of your lighting there, but it's not working.
Actually, I think some of these shots are actually broken. But like, yeah, here, you know, this like, you know, it's like you have this one light here that is connected to the bright surface, and then it just like fades into like silhouette. But then you actually do look at Marvel movies, and everything is like highly stylized quite often in the lighting perspective. There's a lot of like framing and highlighting going on and these type of things. So what the reason why I said what I said is because it feels like that the newer or younger generation has been conditioned by looking at these things for that is actually something pleasing, but it's actually very unnatural. And you know, it's almost like a movie poster where everything is like orchestrated. And like, honestly, I fucking hate movie posters. They usually look so bad when they paint in extra highlights somewhere in the face. Dune is fantastic in that sense because it feels incredibly grounded and natural. Like all the light sources, they connect to, you know, just the how the characters are put into the scene and everything. And to me personally, I enjoy that a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has their taste, of course. I mean, if you go to China, Japan, and India, they also have a different style of lighting, very colorful. I like a lot of, like, I am influenced a lot from Indian Bollywood movies, the way they use the light and colors and stuff, versus, and Japanese also, because I grew up watching a lot of anime and Japanese. I love Korean TV shows more than I love English TV shows, for example. So I am influenced a lot by them. Before you go more into detail on this type of lighting, maybe it's a good time now to address the stuff we were going to address anyway. And I was just waiting for the question to pop up. And there you have it. That's your question.
Yeah. Okay, I'll try to make this rather quick.
Let me zoom into your face. Let it be a bit dramatic.
Epic. So, dude, this is so weird. Like, I have this like lag on the camera now, so everything I see on the screen is like completely out of sync.
I noticed.
Do I need to restart my camera or something? Like, do you have any
you can, let me just see if I can add. Is that better?
Nope, still delayed.
How about that?
No. You know what? Let me quickly stop my mic and cam and enable it again.
Cool.
Let's see, because it's really, really, sorry guys, it's very distracting this way.
And then he ends up with technical problems and he never returns. The end. GG. All right, let me add him back. There we go.
Yeah.
That's better.
There we go. Awesome. This is amazing. Technology.
All right. So I'll let you have your speech.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, many people have been asking constantly about the Lighting Academy. So there's a multitude of reasons why there haven't been any new videos, and they're all equally important, I would say. So the main thing is that at some point I felt like a broken record. Like I was just like, you know, basically explaining the same shit over and over again, just in like a new scene, different like context and stuff. And I really stopped enjoying that. it was just becoming more and more like something that I have to do instead of something that I want to do. So that's one part. Another part is that when I started to be more like like not as frequent with like continuing things, has it, it started by like basically just dragging a bit. I actually like I had a burnout at work, quite a good one, like a strong one. Good burnouts. And I took a lot of me time. I didn't really want to do anything, despite just like really shit that I enjoy. Um, and then it basically just became this thing of like, oh, now I haven't done it in a very long time, so now it's just even harder to start doing it again, kind of. And that has like been for quite a while. And then like a bunch of things started changing privately for me in my private life. And it just kept on going, and I never really had any motivation getting back into it, because I thought, like, if I ever gonna do more lighting academy, I want it to be really meaningful and valuable. And I needed to do it in a different way than I did before, as I knew like the steam was running out from my end on that kind of thing. But I also didn't really have any proper idea on what that could be. And that is why I always are very hesitant and careful answering any questions relating to the Lighting Academy, because I absolutely fucking don't know. It's not that I don't really want to or anything like that. It's just I have no fucking idea what I want to do. And that's mostly the main reason why there hasn't been anything. So all I can say is it may come back, but I don't know in which form or shape yet. I feel a lot more motivated these days. I still love doing Unreal in my free time. No, it's not really about justifying. It's more like people have been wondering, and I want to tell them why. Because, like, I'm not afraid of this. Like, I don't, I don't feel bad for not providing free content. It's more like, I know people care a lot about this, and a lot of people have been wondering if, like, I'm in a very bad spot in my life or anything. And I just want to let I'm good. I'm just incredibly uninspired regarding this whole topic. And the reason why it started was like, just taking time away from any of this, and also feeling quite uninspired. So if any of that comes back, I'll be happy to provide content again. But so far, I don't know.
All right.
So that's that.
So there you guys have it. He might come back. He might not come back. Either way, patience is a virtue.
But I can already give you, like now I'm going to be mean. If I come back, I will definitely make a video about exposure compensation curves, because no one knows how to use that shit. And when I finally figured it out, I was like, this is the best invention since, like, I don't know, OLED displays.
Unless I get him to do it for lighting bot first. Da da da. There's a lot of questions about these things. I mean, it is. I have to say, it is hard to run a YouTube channel consistently, and it is hard to create quality. So, but it has been. I mean, he is busy with his own stuff, and everyone is busy as well. But his channel is still alive, regardless of being 3 years of inactive. It's a constantly linked tutorials anywhere on Discord, anywhere on internet. Everyone links your content as the first place. Oh, I need to learn something. Everyone just.
It actually makes me incredibly happy. I'm like, this is one thing that I want to say to everyone who's listening now. I'm unimaginably like thankful to anyone who has supported me over the years, because, like, believe it or not, I've never ever spent a single second on marketing this shit. Like, this is all because you guys did this. Everyone, word to mouth, like,
Oh, your camera's frozen. What's going on? Oh, camera died. What's going on? Where are you? Do. This is what happens when you go over time. People's cameras stop working. Oh, where is the man? Where's you go? Screen is working, I think. Oh, you might have to restart. Emotion killed this. It's possible. I mean, it's an emotional opportunity for all of us. There we go. He's gonna come and go. I think he got disconnected a little bit. Well, I guess we'll wait patiently for him to return, hopefully, because we still have to go through some of his stuff. But then again, we are 30 minutes over time. But he said he won't just keep going, so we're just gonna keep going. Hopefully he returns. Otherwise, I hope he joined Discord channel to tell me if something died or if something happened. Any more questions while we wait? Feel free to write it on the chat in YouTube, or if you're watching on on Twitter, you can tweet it, or if you're LinkedIn, you can write in the comment fields while we patiently wait for it. I mean, a lot of us have watched this content before, and it's definitely very helpful. I'm definitely trying to get him more included in Lighting Bot, so we'll see if I can persuade him to do more for all of us. Yes. Let me check LinkedIn in case he writes to me there telling me his computer died or whatever. His internet just died. We figured as much. Are you coming back, or should I put up a RAP? I guess we. All right, let me just get him to reply, and let's find out what happens. Meanwhile, while we wait, this is a reminder that we do have portfolio review on Discord and in lightingbot.com. We also have community highlights, which is now being highlighted through posts you do in finished work if you want us to promote you. We also have Unreal tutorials under development. Hopefully that's going to be finished eventually. We also have Unity tutorials for people who want to kind of get a grasp on that. We also have lighting mentorship of different people. And just remember, we are a growing community covering a lot of people across the world in lighting, compositing, even recruitment. So this is definitely a big deal, having people support us in general. Let me just get him to reply a bit. So. Okay. That's fine. Okay, let's see how we're doing. The lighting on my side is terrible. Let's see how he's doing. Shit, continue died. Okay, so I think we're gonna end it here because he is having some issue with the internet, and I don't want to waste you guys' time. We'll try and schedule for part 2. If you guys leave positive comments, subscribe, like, share the video that you already watched today, and if it gets good coverage, we'll then invite him back for a second episode. Meanwhile, I'll try and talk to him in private when he comes back. And thank you again for watching, everyone. It's really appreciative. I was really happy with his attendance, and it was definitely useful for me too. So keep watching. Stay in tune, join Discord. It's very hard to do all of this. We do need a lot of people. We do need more help. If you want to help us out, just join Discord and let us know. Thank you again for watching. Have a nice day. Thank you.